Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA Detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Lights Out Podcast, Abu Dhabi History, Miguel Iturrate. Could there be a better mix? Miguel, we got another series. We're embarking on another part in our quest to document ADCC. And what is upon us today? February 24th, 1999, Team Tank invades Abu Dhabi. Would you like to explain how all of this unfolded?
Well, yeah, a lot of fun going on here. And yeah, we're trying to document, especially the early years. In 1999 is only the second year of Abu Dhabi. There are not many people that were able to attend that show and be there. I was lucky enough to be one of the people that was there. A lot came from that time, on that trip, they gave us permission to do the trials and things like that. But while there in 99, you're experiencing Abu Dhabi for the first time, and you're there with 100 fighters. And, when you do shows, Mike, and people understand, UFC people, 13, 14 fights a day, you're dealing with, maybe 24 fighters, a little over two dozen, 3 dozen fighters. This was 100 fighters. You know what I mean? So there were going to be a couple of X factors. And that's where I think Team Tank comes up, I think, everybody remembers Paul Herrera.
So here, let me make an introduction. We got Paul Herrera, Eddie Ruiz. Many don't even know Paul Herrera was out there, but Eddie Ruiz actually had a heck of a run. Like, we brought this up on our podcast on more than one occasion. Eddie Ruiz had a hell of a run in ADCC. So please, Miguel, go ahead.
Yeah, this is 99, so I was invited as a guest, as a reporter guest to help publicize the event. So I wasn't working on, the inside yet, but I'm going to assume that Herrera is the brains of the operation there, that the Herrera probably sent Guy Nevins an email and, offering him himself, his team, etc. And if there was going to be any way, if they got money, maybe even Tank. Who knows how it went. In 99, there were even rumors that they might hold underground MMA matches. Those short-lived rumors, but there were a few invites, especially like this one, that were kind of MMA fighters not known for grappling and stuff. So there was that idea. Travis Fulton, who I roomed with that year, also fits into that. Not really a great grappler, but invited that year because of his.
How was he as a guest in your room?
I didn't spend a lot of time with him.
Okay.
I just, he was young and it was a big trip. And so I think, that we got him on generally his best behavior. He didn't have a great showing. After the showing, he went out and had a couple of beers kind of thing, but nothing unusual, to be honest. But it was an unusual invite. And that was part of why people thought, hey, there may be some MMA being done. But, that was not, really, that was just a fantasy thing, I think. But you got Team Tank there. Herrera probably emails, gets himself in based on name recognition. People remember Herrera from, when Gary Goodridge elbowed him into oblivion at UFC, one of the early UFCs. But Herrera was an alternate. He didn't participate. He sat as an alternate and, the spot didn't open up, so there's no match for him. But he was there. And Eddie Ruiz.
So here, let's talk Eddie Ruiz. Eddie Ruiz enters the tournament. His first opponent is Charlie Kohler. Charlie Kohler, owner of San Diego Fight Club, kind of a legendary MMA gym.
Oh, yeah. Charlie Kohler, we're talking, this is 1999. And Charlie Kohler was one of those guys that got into Abu Dhabi based on a reputation that, that he put in work by 99. So you're talking about a
lifelong martial artist since the age of 5.
And after this, we didn't see him much. Maybe he was already at the point where the business end of a gym and things like that take over, and you're not doing, the preparation for fights and things. But Charlie Kohler, Eddie Ruiz, I think Charlie's from out west as well. So maybe he had a California versus California
Yeah,
match.
San Diego. Yeah.
So Eddie out wrestled him basically, and Eddie was known as a wrestler. I remember, he came in with knee braces and shoes. And the shoes are the dead giveaway for a wrestler. In '99, at that point, he just wanted the traction and be able to do what he could do there. Hey, they hadn't seen a footlock yet, right? So, but with Charlie, I think, probably Eddie was too physical. Eddie was a good athlete. Eddie was also, he's the loyal little guy on Tank's team. Tank had a couple of big biker guys and other guys, and Eddie was, one of the guys that was always on the front line in their fights and street fights and things like that. And he was known as the loyal teammate, not maybe, the leader of the group, but.
Well, Miguel, let me interject a little bit. So Charlie Kohler, obviously a strong wrestler. My belief going into that is when you got somebody that's as strong as a wrestler as Kohler is, the minute you put him on his back, he's kind of like a fish out of water because he's not used to being there. And it became to who was the better of the two wrestlers, and whoever that was probably going to win that match.
I think that was a big factor in Ruiz's run, that wrestling gives you especially at the lower weight classes, not so much at the higher weight classes, but wrestling does give you an ability to set up scrambles and maintain pace and things. Ruiz did that very well in '99. As long as he was on top, he was going to be okay.
So he gets through Charlie Kohler, and he comes up against Helio Gracie's youngest son, Haben. Haben, who's currently in Barcelona, heading up Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in all of Spain. Big reputation, physical athlete as well. Miguel?
Well, this one was, Robin was out of Spain back then too. So he was one of the branch of the Gracies that went to Spain and stuff to, continue the growth of the art. You see where the art is today. So, you're talking about a guy who's, one of the 21st century's founding fathers of jiu-jitsu, right? A Gracie, son of Julio, And Ruiz beats him. And this was Ruiz, scrambling from the top position, holding him down. And the other, the Gracie felt that the guard was, something that was going to be to his advantage. And it didn't turn out to be that way. That Eddie was able to stay safe. He had gotten the points, and he advanced. And this
huge,
was a big,
huge upset.
Especially, this was one that went unnoticed, really, in the wider martial arts world. And maybe it's because Eddie didn't compete all that much. Rahman really didn't compete all that much on the world level, maybe in Spain or whatever. But it goes unnoticed because here's a guy that is a street kid from, Huntington Beach or whatever area, California. And, they showed it over there. They were rough around the edges. They hadn't had a 5-star hotel treatment before, Eddie and Paul both. And, he got to wrestle in a fashion where he was on top. He was on top of his game, and that's what he wanted to do. But his technique would show up later, or lack of would show up later.
So he beats Haben, which is a big upset, kind of shocking. Some little shockwaves throughout the grappling world at that time. And he comes up against Romina Sato's top student, Cal Uno.
Yeah, and here it all goes wrong. An interesting side note, Ruben Macedo was there this year in '99 and got sick and didn't compete. And that could actually be Ruiz coming in as an alternate to replace him. I don't remember that detail for sure, but that would be Sato's weight class. And that would be, definitely a plausible situation that they brought over Herrera and Ruiz as alternates, and that, Herrera didn't get in and Ruiz did. Now Ruiz, is in a fight. That means you've already made money. After you won 2, you're in the money. He's got $1,000. in the bank, anything else, any other wins means you're adding to that. The Robin Gracie, I want to digress and tell a story because we got a couple of beer drinking stories coming up with Herrera and Ruiz. And so that you know that they are legitimately Tank Abbott people and not, for you're just putting on airs and stuff like that. They started drinking. The competition was broken up into 2 days. So they started drinking after the first day, beating Robin Gracie. Hey, why not party? And, they were stopping reporters and doing interviews and stuff and making fun of Robin and his black belt. And they were using a black leather, dress belt as their black belt. He's like, hey, I got a black belt too. So it holds up my pants. That's what they're good for. Blah, blah, blah. So, they were joking around, but they were, I watched them do some of those interviews. I watched them probably put away a 6-pack, between the two in about 40 minutes. And, that was not going to be the extent of their damage.
Okay, so he goes up against Kyle Uno. Doesn't fare well, but he makes it all the way to the semifinals.
Yeah, Uno.
Or the quarterfinals. I apologize. Quarterfinals.
Yeah, so he loses to Uno, and on the other side of the bracket, the loser of that match was Hayato Sakurai. So Ruiz would be invited back to fight Hayato Sakurai in what's technically the 3-4 match. So the winner goes home with $2,500. The loser goes home with $1,000. Now here's where there's some controversy on Eddie Ruiz's part. Eddie really didn't feel like he could compete. His rib was messed up with Uno. Uno messed him up, and he had a bad rib. Now, he's convincing. He's kind of a sincere guy. He was doing well. He had no reason to not try to compete. So, but a rib injury is one of those where it's like, I don't know. Did he want in? Did he want out? Was he done? Did he want to go drink beer? We'll never know, I guess. But he was injured, didn't want to do the final or the 3-4 match. If he had not done the 3-4 match and they had put in somebody else, he would not have won the $1,000 that were, on the table for that. So when he realized I'm going to get paid anyway, they're like, no, you're not. The person replacing you is, he felt a little bit forced into doing it.
But that wasn't uncommon, not only like at that time, but in that era as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're in Abu Dhabi, but that doesn't mean that there's not some sense in running the event. In general, any other promoter, it's like you're asking them to come up with extra money because you're going to give a guy who's not your guy who's advancing to compete. You do got to come up with something for him. It's not like he's going to do it, or should do it for nothing. So it's a complicated situation, especially when, probably the budget had been handed in and it was done and available, but you don't have leeway in a budget. So Ruiz was put in a corner and he walked out to do a 3-4 match with Sakurai. It went a little bit longer in the stand-up position, if I'm not mistaken. Then as soon as it went to the ground, he squeezed him and that was it. How long was it on the...
he tapped out under a minute.
Okay, yeah. So the stand-up portion didn't last. As soon as they went to the ground, Ruiz was on top. And he said it afterwards. He said, when Sakurai got those big old legs around me, it hurt. And I was out. So he left. Sakurai went home with third place in his weight class. He went on to get an absolute invitation where he finished second in the absolute.
That's nuts.
Yeah, so Sakurai had enough money to go home and buy like an SUV. I mean,
Right.
Those are the stories there. Sakurai,
the one thing,
standouts there, and we just got a piece of him and Duda.
So the one thing that I know is whenever Tank Abbott's involved, especially in the 90s, or any of his crew, there's either drinking or fist fights or probably both taking place. Did those guys, they obviously drank, you had mentioned it. Did they get in any fist fights while they were there?
From what access I had to them, Paul Herrera was a little rough around the edges, but he was no dummy. And I think he realized too, hey, we're in this country here. Everybody was told no fist fighting. It's like, not something you're going to get forgiven for. And they're going to, you're going to get to do 3 months here if you get into a fist fight. So like all the fighters were on notice of that. It led to some tension between several groups and people, you know, at some point, but it never blew up. And I think Herrera, you know, this is the type of thing I see that I think Herrera, it was good Herrera was there because Ruiz was not ready for like that kind of introspection. He might have, if you had told him still, hey, go punch that guy, Ruiz is the kind of guy who for his boys would do it. You know, like that's the kind of like almost youthful loyalty that he had. And, you know, it's good he had Herrera there protecting him to a certain extent, although, you know, they managed to get into some trouble.
Okay. What about drinking?
Well, as I mentioned, they managed to get into some trouble. I don't really have a great close to this portion of the story, but the initiation is fantastic because now the tournament's over. Sakurai is finished second in the absolute, finished third in his weight class. He's one of the big stars leaving here. And he's checking out the hotel, and he's looking for somebody to talk to. He realizes that I've been helpful. He grabs me, and we grab Kawasaki, who was the representative from Japan that was there at the time. And Sakurai had 76 beers charged to his room. Eventually, we found out by Eddie Ruiz and Paul Herrera. So the beers, he was trying to get the beers removed from his incidentals tab that they were responsible for. 76 beers, it's probably $300 worth of beer in this hotel, a couple bucks a beer or whatever. So it was something Sakurai, even though he made some money, he didn't like it. He was concerned about it. The jokesters behind the prank were Ruiz and Herrera. So I don't know if they were made to pay for it. This is a chaotic year. It was the last day. So that tab may very well have been left unpaid. I think at the end, Sakurai wasn't made responsible for it. But there was some moments there that they caused for Sakurai that was stressful. So I guess they got him back.
That's right. At the end, Eddie Ruiz went 1-1 against Sakurai as far as I'm concerned. 76 beers. They probably didn't leave the bar.
No, they were, I remember they scared family. They were, this is a big 5-star hotel in 99. And, there were families by the pool and, these punks from Southern California, show up at the pool, sit, the furniture's all around it, sit with a 6-pack each, and start slurping down beers at the pool with people got their kids there, So yeah, they made an impression along the way. And I think, at the end of the day, it's funny. And, I respect their ability to be themselves no matter what. That's great. But that may have cost them too, because, complaints at the hotel lead to complaints back there. And then he's asking for a break on, pay me some money. I did real good. I beat Robin Gracie. You're going to force me to compete injured. You can see both sides.
Right, for sure. Well, that is more history from 1999, right from Abu Dhabi. Miguel Durante, thank you so much. And we will be back again next week for another episode. Thank you.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.